Okay, give me 1 second. This video is private. Hold on a second. Okay, we're streaming live. I was just, we're ready to go.
Okay. I'll call this meeting to order. I want to thank everyone for joining in this morning. Our first item of business is our roll call. Melissa Cardwell,
Present.
Kevin Phelps,
Here.
Judge Coleman,
Here.
Judge Vincent, Judge Vincent not with us? No? Okay. Colton Gibbons.
Here.
All right. Our next item of business is approval of our minutes from our 5/16/2023 board meeting. I think you all had them sent out to you earlier. If there's no additions or corrections to the minutes, I'd accept a motion as presented.
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
A motion by Colton, a second by Kevin. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor of the motion, let it know by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is a project discussion. I think that goes back to you. Is that Jeff?
You're muted, Jeff.
It can be if you like. The thing that we had for today was to talk about the program and any adjustments that would be necessary to resolve before we move forward. Got one comment back from Judge McCown, and I responded to that. I presume everyone saw that response. So that's really where we are, is we need to determine whether or not we're making any of the similar adjustments that we made on Crittenden or not. So has everyone had a chance to kind of think about that or look at it? I mean, I'm happy to go over it again, but I didn't want to repeat everything unnecessarily if you all have had a chance to think about it.
Well, I thought Ben's comments were, most of it addresses the family court side of things, and
Right.
his comments were.
So that is just a matter of whether to do it or not. I mean, my comment back was, he made appropriate comments about the way things operate today, but acknowledging the fact that they don't have a resident judge in the county, which could happen anytime. And so in Crittenden they did, and that's what sort of led to a lot of this. So at whatever point you get another judge that's operating as a home base out of Crittenden County, some of those comments become more important because that would be their home base. So again, our experience has been the AOC always plans for not just the present, but decades down the road. So we would just need to decide whether or not those spaces were added.
I guess from the court's perspective, we always want more room. So I don't, it's
Right, I understand.
hard not to say that we wouldn't want to do that. So, but
Right.
I just don't know how much of a monkey wrench would that throw into things. But
Well, it doesn't throw a monkey wrench into it unless it gets added after we started. Then it does, because these are all things that have to be decided before you lay out a floor plan, because you can't just squeeze it in somewhere, a few months down the road. You really would be starting over. So, we've already done it. We did it at Crittenden County, and since we knew in advance we were doing it, it's like anything else. As long as we know what the requirement is, it doesn't throw a problem into it. The only thing that does that is changing it after the design has already progressed. So at this stage, we haven't done anything. So either we do it or we don't. It's going to be the same amount of work at this point. So and then the only thing that he didn't comment on, because it didn't directly affect him, was the other adjustment that was made on Crittenden County, was adding more spectator space to the jury courtroom beyond what was in the original. That was the other basic change that was made. So he didn't comment on that because I guess it didn't really affect him directly. So.
and what is the number of potential spectators and the difference between the two?
Let's see, I've got this in here somewhere. Yeah. So if you go now, the email I sent, let's say the jury courtroom size increased. Let me just read it to you, and then that way, it might tell the story. The original Butler program for the large jury courtroom indicates a 1,200 square foot litigation area, 850 square foot spectator area. These are the areas, the same as indicated in the Bath program. And I gave that just for reference. As drawn, the Bath courtroom has 111 spectator seats calculated at the code standard of 18 inches per person. At a more comfortable 24 inches per person, the count would be 89 spectator seats. Okay, so that's exactly as the program shows it. You'd have either 111 or 89, depending on how wide the seat is. On Crittenden, the jury courtroom was increased from 850 to 1,200. This netted a total of 169 spectator seats at 18 inches or 139 at 24 inch. So, you're adding about 50 more seats to increase the courtroom or the spectator size. And again, that change on Crittenden did not affect the litigation area at all. It was identical. It was literally how many rows of seats you put in. So that was the main difference, is you're adding about 50 more people on Crittenden beyond what it originally showed in the program, which is the same as what is in your program. So that's the decision right there, is whether or not that's an issue. It was evidently a considerable issue on Crittenden based on what they foresaw their usage to be, and that's why the change was made.
Hey, Jeff, was some of their stuff related to jury pool when they were?
Well, some of it was, but even that did not take care of it entirely, because what we did there, and if you'll look, the way they plan to do their jury pool would still require more seats than that. However, they were able to realize that maybe they would bring them in I can't remember the number, 2 seating as opposed to 1. So in order to, this is always an issue for people bringing in a jury pool, because there's usually never going to be enough seats to sit them all in one place at one time. But it's just a matter of, how convenient or inconvenient that is perceived to be, to do it multiple times.
Okay. So basically, we need to make a decision. I saw Judge McCown has the family court administrators as top priority, right? And then it looks like to be the additional restroom.
Right. Yeah, and you know, he mentioned the other spaces would be helpful, but again, that was sort of the way I read it. It is, you know, he says these would likely be used more often in Butler County as our caseload there is higher. So again, all I'm trying to think of for you all is to make sure you've thought about down the road. Yeah, again, I'm not trying to push this on you. It's just that there was such a considerable amount of discussion on this in Crittenden, and they determined that the way they used it, they really needed these spaces, and it would be, you know, you can't just squeeze a couple more places in later. That it's just not possible to do that. So I'm not trying to talk you into it. Don't get me wrong. I just want to make sure you think it through, that, you know, that maybe what you have today, whether the usage continues that way or whether it's going to change. So, and I think the way I read it, a lot of that somewhat is related to where the judge resides and whether that changes in the future.
Let me ask this for Judge Coleman. So basically right now, I'm assuming, Jeff, we got the courthouse is set up for 2 offices for 2 judges, right? But we have 3. So,
well, actually,
am I right there?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just thinking if you have 2, but you have 2 offices, but possibly 3 judges, then somebody's sharing at some point, possibly. Am I right there?
Well, we actually have, like, right now, what we've got is we've got a total of 3 judges in Crittenden shown on the plans. We've got, you know, 1 for family, 1 for district, and 1 for circuit. So that's what the plan that I included for reference showed, was a total of 3. Now, 2 of those judges shared a suite. So they had like a common staff area and that sort of thing. So
that was the upstairs section, I believe. Yeah, so Crittenden County does have 3 office spaces. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I don't have it up in front of me. I
have
Judge McCown's email. I was reading through it. So
yeah, Crittenden has 3 spaces for 3 judges. Bath County did not. Bath County, which was a little smaller, had only 2 judges. Because they didn't have a family court component.
1 judge is downstairs on that.
Yes.
yeah.
And the reality is, you know, it's not possible on a building of this size to put everybody on the top floor, just because you'd end up with a top heavy building with more stuff upstairs than you do down, which doesn't really work. But the way we arranged it on Crittenden with the elevator makes it kind of a non-issue, because you go straight down and the office is right there. So as far as travel distance, it's really not an issue. You just have to enter the elevator, or if you care to walk the stairs, which is adjacent, that's fine too. But it's actually no worse spread out than if you tried to spread it out on the top floor. You would just have longer to walk at that point, you know, even if you could. So
for his additional call, you know, and the judges are probably going to have more say than me, but I feel like we need to, as long as this project's going to take to complete and everything, we need to be prepared for the future.
Yeah.
However we go, and you know, for its additional cost, we need to do the capacity that we think we need for us to handle in the future.
Jeff, just real quick, do you think we need to go over what trade-offs they did or sacrifices they made to try to stay I don't know if that's worth going over, because didn't they have to make some choices on shrink this and all that different type stuff, or?
Well, the main thing that was done, I can kind of generally explain it, is that the only thing that was really done to kind of economize in space was like on that second floor where you have the two judges' offices, that they were not totally separate spaces, but they shared a suite. Now, there's a good amount of space there. I don't think that's an issue. It's just a matter of, you walk into a door and you kind of go two ways, and you've got one judge on the left, one on the right, and then you've got a bunch of offices in between that they all share. They share a conference room instead of each having their own, conference area. In this case, they didn't even have an enclosed conference room that had a large space that could be used for conferences. Their preference was that their staff have the enclosed spaces. And so that was one trade-off, rather than having a defined conference room that was walled in. These judges in Crittenden had their offices. They were sufficiently sized where they could have a small table, in there where they could actually have conferences in their office. So, some of those little tweak type of details, you still have the ability to decide whether or not you want your staff to be in cubicles, or whether you want your staff to be in enclosed offices, whether you want to have a separate conference area, or whether you want to have that capacity built within your office. I guess the point is the suite is probably big enough for you, when we sit down and talk with the judges, for them to customize their space how they want it without making it bigger. It's just that in Crittenden, they made certain choices because of the way they liked to work. And, we want you all to feel comfortable that you can do a similar thing, that, you can design, your individual space internally the way you like to work. And I think you still have the capacity to do that. So the trade-offs weren't so much in getting rid of other spaces. It was more how they wanted to use them internally. And so you might decide something different. If you've got 3,000 square feet of space, you can divide that space up how you want to use it. It might turn out a little differently than the way they decided to do it. But I think you have sufficient room within your overall judges' chambers to do it the way you want to do it. I'll put it that way. So they didn't really eliminate things. There were some ideas I remember early on, just so you know what the discussion was. The local board, for example, suggested that because of these spaces that were being added, they might want to look at reducing some of the others that they didn't feel like they needed. And that was, and I can't remember exactly which one it was, whether it was the drug court or the pretrial or the CDW. They felt those spaces weren't going to be utilized fully, and they were suggesting those be reduced, or a couple of them even being eliminated. But the AOC didn't allow that, because again, they were looking down the road saying, well, you might not see the need today, but we need to plan for those spaces being better utilized in the future. So as a result, while the PDB in Crittenden suggested some things that could be eliminated, they were programmatic items that the AOC did not agree to eliminate, and therefore they stayed in. So and that's why the size of the building increased. There really weren't trade-offs inside the building that caused a reduction in space. It was the trade-offs were just in how it was used. So as a result, Crittenden's program area ultimately increased rather than staying the same. And that's why, this is such an important issue for going forward, is knowing exactly how many square feet we have to work with when laying it out. So it's basically two, boil it down to two big issues: is does the jury courtroom get increased for more seating? One or two, and two, are the family court spaces added or not?
Well, from the jury standpoint, I think we need the larger or more spaces. I would prefer that.
I agree with Judge Coleman. I think that if we had a larger room for the jury, that would be very beneficial for Butler County.
What about on the family court items?
Well, deferring somewhat to Ben, I think he's right in his observations. I think we probably need to go more with the Crittenden type of layout with regard to the family court.
And the way this works is whatever decision you all make, since it effectively changes that program document, what we did before is we summarized those things, gave it back to the AOC so they could, make it official. And that way, going backwards in time, 2 years from now, why did we do this? Well, here's the reason and here's how it was authorized. We just kind of have to follow that procedure. So, I mean, that wasn't a big, as I remember on Crittenden, once we got to that point, that really wasn't a big deal. The more time was spent trying to figure out what to do rather than actually the doing of it. So we're a little bit further ahead here on this one because of having gone through some of these same issues on an otherwise identical building. We've kind of had all that discussion. It took months to do that on Crittenden. I think we're kind of able to short circuit some of that here by having that background and being able to talk about it up front. So I'd say, whatever you all decide, I would just kind of play this back, summarize it, and send it to everybody. And then the AOC would then have to sign off and say, yes, we agree to proceed like this. And then we move on, so. And you all understand what the point was about the seating in the courtroom, the two numbers. What it is, the difference between the 18 and 24. The 18 is what the code requires you to calculate as a maximum occupancy. That's just a number. It's like a door width or a stair width. You have to calculate it per the code numbers that they use. And the reality is, everyone has experienced that. No matter your size, 18 inches per person is not comfortable. And that's why we give the other number, just to give someone a better idea for what you can practically sit in there. Yes, you can legally sit with the larger courtroom, 169 people in there. The reality is you're probably going to get more like 139 in there just because of, other factors of just sitting a person in a seat. But so, if you really want to squeeze them in there, you can do that. Code will allow you to do it. So that's why the two numbers.
All right. Well, is there any more discussion on the spacing?
Yeah, I guess we would just need to have, from today, a motion telling us what to do to move forward. And based on that, we would clarify all that with the AOC. And then our next step after that would be to come down and, meet with the judges and the clerk and start, getting into the specifics of, anything you'd want to tweak to make the building your own. So yeah, I guess it would start with that motion today, one way or the other, of what you want to include.
What I've heard so far, it looks like we'll need a motion stating a larger jury room and the family court being laid out like Crittenden County. Is that correct?
Sound like that's what I heard, but
Yeah, or release the same items, including the same items as Crittenden County, correct, Jeff? Wouldn't that cover it?
that would cover it because we can summarize. I don't think you have to go into all the excruciating detail in your motion, we can follow that up with an understanding of what that meant, for the record.
I'll make that motion.
All right, I have a motion by Judge Coleman
I'll
For a lo-
second it.
and a second by Colton Givens. The motion stating a larger jury room and the family court being laid out the same as Crittenden County. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I would just say the only way I would say that a little bit is it's not really a jury room. It's just the jury spectator area. There is a room on the space called the jury room, which we're not really increasing that room in size. That's where the jury deliberates. So it's the jury courtroom spectator area. That's the only clarification I would make in the motion. Yep.
Jury spectator area. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, let it know by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, well, based on that, I tell you what I'll do, we don't need to discuss that here in this meeting, but I'll send an email out also to the judges and the clerk. And we'll start figuring out a good time for me to come down and meet with you all to talk about the specifics. So I'll follow that up later today or tomorrow, and then y'all can look at your schedules and see what'll work out, okay?
That'd be good.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, real quick, I know we need to define the right of way on the north side of the property as far as being able to get the building closest to the
Mhm.
road.
Right.
And I think is transportation cabinet not moving on getting that resolved with the city? Is there an issue, correct? That's stalled? Do we think?
Yes, Mark, on my end of it, one is blaming the other, the other is blaming it back and forth.
I've never heard
Okay.
that happening in government.
Yeah,
So what's the gentleman's name who's the transportation guy?
Joe Plunk,
Yeah, what has he said? He can't get any movement from the city or?
exactly. And the city says that they ain't heard anything from the state. So that's where I get left at, ain't it? In amongst all of it.
Okay. All right.
Suggested for them to contact each other, but now whether they have or not, I don't know.
Okay. So sounds like we got to get the ball rolling somehow.
Yeah, and I'll see the mayor again today. I'll bring it back up to him today.
Let me ask you this. Do you think we need to get them on a call or something with the mayor and Mr. Plum?
Well, according to Joe Plunk, the city is going to have to move on this, and I don't think this. Personally, I can't say this. Just my own feeling. I don't think the city has brought it up in a meeting. They had to bring it up in a meeting, and I don't think it's ever been.
Okay. To get it rolling on there, and from a standpoint with, I guess y'all have a city commission, I guess, or?
Yes.
Okay. Because really Jeff's going to, so basically Jeff's going to need to know for sure, right, Jeff, by the time we get done with phase A?
Yeah, what it amounts to, what we've done right now and what we had originally shown you all as far as a layout, we had used for worst case scenario on purpose, the Crittenden size, which is a little bit larger building than what was in the program. So that's about as far as good. We just decided that today, but that's what we've been showing you anyhow. And worst case scenario, it fits the way it is right now. However, it's a little tight, on that southeast corner up against the Coleman property that remains. It works, but it could be more generous. So it doesn't really affect the design of the building, but it does affect the design of the site. So our intention would be very simply, if we can get what we're what we've been talking about is a much narrower easement, you know, like the back of the sidewalk along Ohio Street there. We can just move the building over and give a little more generous room between the new judicial center and the Coleman property. So it's not a make or break situation at all. It's more of a, you know, it's just a better design. So it won't keep us from developing the building today, but it would make an impact on how the site was laid out. So yes, it does need to be resolved. Obviously, you know, it'd be best if we could have it resolved in time to have the Phase A reflect that. Wouldn't be a killer if it didn't, but it would just mean that as we move further down the project, at some point, we'd have to say, listen, we can't move any further. I don't think that would affect Phase A at this point, but, you know, other than it wouldn't be entirely accurate, it would show that the tighter layout until we had confirmation that it could be slid over.
Let me ask another question, Jeff. Have we ever done anything that, now correct me if I just don't know the answer to this, on showing the city and what we think we want? I know we talked about in order to.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a simple diagram, you know, that would show, I mean, just a line that shows what we want to do. Yes. I mean, that would be
once they agree to, I think we would have to capture that in some type of survey update. I don't know how that works.
Yes. And I'd sent an email earlier on that once this is resolved, we'd have to get our official surveyor to update all of this, you know, I mean, even though he's completed the survey, he's completed it based on the current property descriptions. So, and the street right of ways and all that. So I don't think it's terribly complex, but yes, we would then get an updated survey that shows the new setbacks and all, you know, the way they really are.
I got one other question, Jeff. Do you happen by chance know if the utilities have any type of right of way through that part there, or are going to have to contend with them? Sometimes that's shown on when they do the survey, they'll possibly show that. I don't know. Does that make sense? So let's say you know, if we had to have AT&T agree or something like that, that's going to possibly compound getting that done. I'm just throwing that out. I don't know how we figure that out if we don't know. I just want to bring that up, or you know.
No, it's a good point.
I don't know if we need to have the surveyor check that, or.
Yeah, the surveyor should be able to check that. And in fact, I'm trying to think right now on his survey. Just give me a moment. I'll take a look at this.
Just in case we need to do some additional investigating, better to do it now than to have it come up unknown later.
No, you're right. Just looking for. I got it pulling up a survey and looking at it. Normally he does have any easements already shown that would be applicable. And I don't remember seeing anything that would have indicated that, but we can simply ask the question because we're going to have him do this work anyway.
Not sure how it works when it's downtown versus like, you know, new development and all that.
No, I understand.
So
usually though, they are they're already showing whatever easements that they have available.
Okay.
But I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask again, you know, with the change, because the only thing that's really changing other than what he's already shown is who owns the street. And I'm just looking on here. He shows right of ways. I don't see anything on his current survey that would indicate an easement. You know, there are some there's some overhead lines that run down the street, you know, right next to it there. but there's no, there's nothing shown with a dashed line either side of it showing any sort of an easement.
Okay.
Normally he would have shown that already if it existed, but I can, we can ask the question for sure and make sure that he's double checked that. I'm looking at it right now. I don't see anything indicated.
Okay. I just don't know how that works. Like when stuff's downtown and, way back in the day, there was maybe there was no such thing there, but the stuff exists. I assume it's just on the state property. I don't know how that works exactly. If there's some type of, I don't know what you want to call it, right away that's but grandfathered in based because it's utility. I don't know how that works exactly. I haven't come across that like downtown to know exactly how that works out.
Yeah. Well, the reality is I'm looking at the survey now, the boundary survey of what you all are purchasing. It's just to be clear, the right of way has no bearing on the property you own. The property you own is what it is. And that has a line that won't be moving regardless of what happens with the street. In other words, I'm looking at the boundary right now. The boundary survey does not take the property up to the back of where a future sidewalk might be. It's a little bit off of that still. So even though we would be looking to move the easement over for the sake of utilities or whatever else, that doesn't mean that we can bring the building all the way up to the side of the sidewalk anyway, because your property doesn't go that far. The property is, some distance, a little bit of distance off of that street anyway. So that would be the limits of where we would put the building. The building would still never go all the way over to where the sidewalk is, just because you don't own it. You only own it so far. So there's a little bit of built-in cushion there, even with those overhead lines, because the overhead lines aren't on your property line; they're closer to the street.
Okay.
But I can ask him, if he's fully researched the easements. That's a simple question.
Okay.
But yeah, once we have all the information, I guess from your property transfers, at some point it'd be good to get that. We can send it to the surveyor, and then once it's worked out with the city about the property or the street transfer and all that, once he has all that information, we can get him to update the survey to its current status. And all that really does, I don't think he'd have to probably even go out there again. It's more of a, where he shows lines and how they're noted.
Okay. I have a copy of the deed. Jeff, do you think, anything else you need besides that?
As far as, if you have, whatever you got from the property transfer, the deed, whatever, that should be fine.
Okay.
And then the only thing will be once we know for sure who's owning the street.
Okay.
Because that right now, he simply, the survey shows the 60-foot right of way centered on the street, which, obviously we're looking to reduce that. But that is more, I think, of a notation than it is any real effort on his part on site.
Okay.
Is there any more project discussion at this time? Not, we'll move on into other business. Has anyone got any items they need to bring before the board at this time?
I just have a question. Now that we have got the property transfer taken care of, I know the design process and the bid process will take several months, but what about going ahead and proceeding with demolition? Is that something that we can go ahead and start making plans to do, or do we need to wait for some later stage before we undertake that endeavor?
I think it's probably wise to wait on that until we get a little bit more development on the site. That's all. If you decide to do an early demolition package, that would have to be, bid out, and that's a whole nother process. It doesn't obviously take as long as, designing a new building or anything, but there's a lot of documents that have to be prepared just to make that happen. You know, not only the drawings, but there has to be specifications and a legal front end, and it has to be advertised, and there's a bid period. You know, it's a period of time. We also would have to, you know, look at, you know, how that relates to any hazardous materials abatement or and all. So it's a bit of a process. But to answer your question, could it be done early? Yeah, it could be, but it's not something you can, you know, get done next month. It's going to take a while to put something together. But I would say, first of all, we need to make sure that we've got the site parameters nailed properly and make sure we don't miss something in the demolition that needed to be taken care of. The other part that sometimes comes up with demolition is that, for example, we just went through this in Clinton County. They wanted to do an early demolition package, but what they decided to do there was not what I would call a full demolition package, because demolition ultimately involves a lot of site elements that you might not want to touch until you know, when you're building the building. So what they ended up doing in Clinton County was basically just clearing the site, really. I mean, they took the buildings down, you know, filled in the holes and stopped. But all the other ancillary things related to any utility relocations or anything else that would be involved in a full demolition was deferred until the final package. So those are all discussions we would need to have to make sure that what was actually being demolished early had the appropriate limits put on that. And we all knew what that was. But usually at this really early stage, it mostly just involves any structures on the property just coming down and stopping there.
Well, and that's kind of what I had in mind, just thinking about that's one area where we could save some time down the road, is if we had some of that preliminary stuff already done.
Right. And like one of the things we had to do too, like in Clinton County, we had a separate bid where the environmental consultant prepared a bid package just to take care of that. And that actually has to happen before the demolition. You know, they have to get in there, and if there's any hazardous materials that need to be abated or hauled off or whatever, that's done by usually not the demolition contractor, but a consultant that does just those things. So that's another step in the process. But that we just did this on Clinton County. So we have basically two bid packages, one for the environmental work and another one for that, you know, site clearing or the demolition of the buildings. So I'd say probably by the time of the next meeting, we can maybe be in a better position to talk about that a little bit more.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
And also too, that's not the amount of work we got on the demolition is not a huge amount of work, relatively speaking, just so you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why you have to kind of decide if it's worth it. Sometimes it is, sometimes I guess my point is, if there's a reason to do it early, fine. If you're doing it because the impression is that it's going to make the rest of the project go quicker, if it's minimal amount of work that needs to be done, it might not make a difference. You know, it's just another step in the process. And sometimes it can muddy the water as far as the cost even. But if it's a significant demolition, it's a little more clear. One of the things that we would need to do regardless, and this could easily be done early, is the environmental stuff. Get that taken care of, because that's going to have to be done before anything anyhow. So yeah, we'll talk about all that at the next meeting with a little bit more clarity.
While you
Go
were
ahead.
talking, Jeff, I reached out to Mayor Phelps to just kind of see when the city council schedule, when they met. They said they usually meet the second Thursday of every month. And there actually is a special call hearing coming up on June 29th. Judge Fleener, is that with fiscal court as well?
Yeah, but it's on a different issue.
Yeah, it's on a different issue. So I just wanted to let you all know that if we wanted to present it to the city council, it looks like it's the second Thursday of every month when they meet.
Okay. I have a couple of items. I've been approached by a gentleman by the name of Jack Blanton. He owns an old clock that is right now is being displayed in Morgantown Bank. And he has approached me about asking you all if you would like for that clock to go in the new judicial center. So we would like for you all, the board members here, to look at it at Morgantown Bank and make a decision on it. The other thing, as far as maintaining the piece of property now, since we do own it, the Colemans keep that place looking really nice down there, mowed and manicured. So we need to make arrangements for us to start taking care of that corner lot down there for us, keeping it mowed and manicured. Mark, is that something you want the county to take care of on that?
If you can say, if you can, Judge Fleener, it says in the interim, if that's possible, how much, a lot of that stuff's gravel, isn't it? Is it just like down at the tip or what exactly?
It's gravelled in. Well, a lot of it is that triangle piece needs to be mowed
Okay.
at least once a week.
Is there anything over across the street it's got grass?
No, it's all.
Maybe just the ditch line. That's about it.
If you could, that would be great, realistically. Or,
Okay.
Hopefully, depending on how fast, I mean, this is a smaller building and Jeff's done a couple of these. I'm expecting that I think we'll be able to see through the design stuff a little bit smoother compared to some of these others. So that's just my personal opinion, but I mean, maybe luckily by next summer we'll be building a building possibly. But, Jeff, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable, considering what we just decided today and knowing now what we're doing to move forward, we can now move forward. So, yeah, normally the design process of phase A, phase B, and the phase C, where we do the bulk of the actual construction documents, takes usually about a year with all the reviews and everything that has to happen in between. So, yeah, I think that's a reasonable assumption. What we'll do now, once we have this decision and we're able to move forward, we will come up with a preliminary schedule based on, similar projects that shows how it normally goes, and we'll show that to everybody so that everyone kind of plan ahead for, key events that will be taking place, or how long your involvement will need to be in making decisions, all that sort of thing. So we'll produce that schedule and send it out. We'll do that well before the next meeting. We'll send you something so you can have a kind of big picture look at the whole project.
Also, Judge Fleener, did you get a letter from the director's office on 25 years bonding, possibly an email? So ring a bell. So they're trying to do a letter from the director's office saying we can finance 25 years if needed,
Yes,
pre-approval.
Yeah, pre-approval.
Okay, so Jeff, just so you know, they've sent out letters for all the projects to be able to bond for
I did
25
see
years.
I saw one of those. I think it might have been on Clinton.
Okay.
But
So-
yeah, I saw what you're talking about.
We'll hope that'll get us through for all the projects until the session begins again. So, and some of the other projects, they've had more discussion on budget with their local legislators. So there's several that are, let's say, well informed on, the status of the, construction costs and whatnot, just to bring that up for everybody, just so they know.
And that's how you all have been able to work this out. Like, I mean, the good example was Bath County.
Yeah.
That one went out to bid and it was too high, and they were just, they're bumping it up against what they could do using normal financing. And then when the AOC allowed it go into 25 years, then it worked. So, that one's now finally getting going after hitting a roadblock there for a while. So, So it did work.
Okay. All right. Is there Anything else bring before the board? One other thing, I'd forget, Mike Coleman, of course, he has moved his business across the street now, but he still has a few items that he's waiting on to move out of the buildings over there due to some type of construction work that he's having done in his new site. I told him that it would be fine, that we would just work with him on that for him to get that out, if that's okay with the board.
I got no problem with that.
I don't think we're gonna need it anytime soon.
No.
No. Okay. All right. We need to schedule our next meeting.
The 18th is the third Tuesday.
Got one quick question. Do you all want to make the Tuesday the permanent meeting date? Now, if so, we can change that, but between now and next meeting, we have to advertise that. That's going to be our new regular meeting date. The past couple, we've just done those as special meetings and canceled a regular meeting. And also, too, is Judge Vincent, is he normally able to meet in the mornings? Melissa, do you know what his schedule is? Because this phase A stuff's going to be more important for him to attend. I just don't want to schedule something if he has a conflict that day.
He has
Normally.
court on Tuesday and Wednesday, so it's not gonna make any difference as far as that.
Yeah, he has
Okay.
court on Tuesday in Ohio County, Wednesday in Butler.
Okay. Realistically, is there a day where we could possibly have everybody have everybody meet?
No,
What time's he start court in Butler? This one,
he's not starting until 9
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, we moved the court back, so it starts at 9.
But
maybe-
Michelle is meeting with defendants in the 8 to 9 hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
We moved it to Tuesday so that she could attend.
What time do you know what time is Ohio? Is it Ohio County? Is that right? What time
Yeah.
does that start on Tuesday? Is it possible for him to adjust the time? Well, we're already meeting at 8 o'clock your all's time.
I think it starts at 9 in Ohio as well.
Okay.
If he would join by phone, I imagine he's on the road because he was in Edmondson going to Ohio, but if he would join by phone, it would be fine.
Hmm.
I can talk to him. I'm going to see him tomorrow for court and see maybe what might work best for him, and I can report back to the board.
Yeah, because don't you agree, Jeff? This is going to be pretty handy. Phase A is probably that's one where the major decisions are made during this part right in here. So
Right.
having the district judge not being able to listen to all those, various decisions, I think for me, it's be important.
I
to
would
have him.
say just, I'm not trying to minimize it. I would say, to be fair to him, I think as you described it, listening to being able to participate that way is important. I don't think we're going to have too many things that we would be using this meeting to visually approve things, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
Where he would actually need to see the screen and see what's going on, that's why I'll be coming down there to talk with them personally about their spaces, and we'll be doing that in person. Yes, he definitely needs to be able to be involved. I don't know that it's a killer at all to not be able to see everybody or see the screen necessarily, as far as I'm concerned, because I think if there's anything of a more detailed nature that needs to be discussed, we probably won't be getting into the excruciating detail like that in this meeting. It'd probably be another opportunity where we would be doing that anyway. So.
Well, the court just gave me a note and said the district court for Greg is on Mondays here in Ohio County. So I would need to probably check with him and see what But I think Tuesdays probably works better, given the fact that they're always in Butler, but
Okay. So for right now, we could probably just do the next meeting as a special call meeting on Tuesday until we firm up what's best overall.
yeah, I
And then
think
we'll
that's fine.
cancel the Wednesday meeting. Does that sound correct for everybody?
Sounds good.
Okay, so our next board meeting will be July the 18th at 8 a.m. Buzz. All right. If
Hey,
there's
can
no,
I just ask one question? I was thinking about, setting up, I'll email everybody, but well, everybody being primarily Judge Vincent, and Judge Coleman and Melissa, about, sitting down, and having this initial meeting with them. But I was thinking, Melissa, it might be helpful once I send that, I realize how crazy everybody's schedules are, but this is a meeting where it always works best if the three of y'all can be there together because you have a lot of interaction.
Right.
If I could maybe enlist your help when I send that email to since you know a little bit better than I do what their schedules are to help work that out as
Sure.
far as their time, and that would be, I'm going to copy everybody on it, but if you all need to talk amongst yourselves, go for it, and whatever works out for you all, then I can just, come down accordingly. So, but that might be easier for you to coordinate than me.
I'm used to juggling judges'
Yeah,
schedules.
I got you. Okay. All right, great. Thanks.
Judge Vincent just said that he is going to join us in just a moment if we wanted to hang on so we could figure out the meeting time.
Okay.
Everyone, I need to leave. I've got a 9 o'clock. I've got a courtroom waiting on me. Any day is fine for me. At 8 o'clock, I can always make that work pretty much. So if Melissa, if you don't mind, once Greg gets on, y'all kind of just send me an email. That's
Okay,
fine.
sure will, Judge.
I need to get on out there. Have a great day, everybody.
You too.
Thank you, Judge. Mark, do we have any idea about how long it's going to be before Judge Vincent gets on?
He just got on. He was
Morning, folks.
morning.
Morning.
Judge.
We're stuck in another situation. I came out here at 8 o'clock. I thought we started at 8.
We did.
Well, nobody would let me in. I see how you think about me now.
But Judge, what we're looking at is possibly changing our regular scheduled date, which is on the third Wednesday of each month. We've been having special call meetings on the third Tuesday of each month. Is changing that date to the third Tuesday, making that our regular scheduled meeting instead of having special call meetings on Tuesday, if that'll work for you.
That third Tuesdays will work for me. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I will need a motion to change our regular meeting date to the third Tuesday of each month.
I make a motion that we do that.
I have a motion by Melissa, seconded by Kevin. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor of the motion, let it know by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Our regular scheduled meetings will be on the third Tuesday of each month from now on. If there's nothing else to bring before the board at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Kevin.
Second.
Everybody, there you go. Second by Colton. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you all. Thank everyone for their time this morning. It's been a little long meeting, but appreciate everybody's time and courtesy this morning. So everyone have a great day.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Yeah.